This year we've seen the Ghana Cedis appreciate by about 45%, making it the best currency against the dollar in Africa and indeed the world. On the show this morning, we are going to be exploring the nuances behind the performance of the GHS this year. Welcome to Economy and Markets, where we give you a comprehensive and insightful breakdown of market and economic activities. I'm your host, David Olujimi. Today we're focusing on one of the most compelling financial stories unfolding in Africa this year, which is the dramatic rebound of the Ghana Cedis. In 2020, we began to see the Ghana Cedis depreciate from about 9 cedis to $1. It began to depreciate to 12 cedis to $1. At the start of 2025, the Ghana Cedis was around 15 cedis to $1. So basically, after years of worrying depreciation, the cedi is now on a journey. It has now pivoted to become possibly the world's best performing currency, up around 40 to 50% against the US dollar. Probably only the Russian ruble is around the same performance level. It's now trading at 10 cedis, or between 10 to 10.3 cedis to the USD as of late June. In its report, the Ghana International Trade and Finance Conference highlighted some of the key factors behind the rally. They identified the debt restructuring success, the firming prices of commodities such as gold and cocoa, as well as the intervention by the Bank of Ghana. In this report, they also identified that the Ghana Cedis may average 10.02 GHS by the end of 2025. In the report, they contain that between Q3 and Q4, they are projecting that the exchange rate will settle between 7.09 to 10.5 GHS per dollar. Inflation rates are down, but the question is, how much did this rally affect inflationary pressure in Ghana? On the show this morning, we're going to be speaking to Selasi Koffi, who is the CEO of the Ghana International Trade and Finance Conference. Welcome to the show, Selasi.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you very much, your cherished viewers.
All right, so we're getting started right away. The cedi has appreciated roughly 40 to 50% against the dollar. It has now acclaimed to world best performing currency this year. How would you assess the overall significance of this rally?
Well, thank you once again. Let me take your own words or phrase, a dramatic overturn of the cedi. I mean, we think that there are a number of indicators, economic indicators, that are driving this positive trajectory and outlook of the Ghanaian cedi against not only the dollar, but other major trading currencies in the country. For instance, your viewers may be well aware that Ghana undertook a painful economic transformation program last year, which was what we call the haircut, which was part of the debt restructuring procedure by the then government. It was painful because investments were going to be foreclosed, earnings and dividends were going to delay. People's expectation in terms of what was happening on the market and their returns were going to be delayed. So the entire debt restructuring came as a yielding fruit in 2025 for the dollar and other trading major trading currencies. But that's not all. That is capitalized by the current administration's robust discipline. It was a deliberate decision to stimulate the economy within the last 6 months, as we've seen, as a result also of the cedis our appreciation against the dollar. So some of the internal indicators, which I said earlier, includes the debt restructuring, what we call the fiscal position, which actually government's deliberate policy to reduce deficits and grow revenue. And this was expected to also reduce borrowing, which has accumulated domestically to what we are seeing on the foreign exchange. However, one other important, very critical government intervention is what we call the gold board.
Okay.
The gold board became very necessary to regulate Ghana's resource in terms of gold export outside the jurisdiction and measure systematically and strategically the income repatriation back into the country and hitting our monetary system to give us the better, how do we call it? Give us a better reserve or increase the Ghanaian reserve. And this strengthened the cedi against the US dollar and other trading currencies in the country. So to answer you briefly, these are some of the domestic economic indicators that influenced the cedi's growth and stability we are seeing.
So basically, you've identified quite a number of factors. You've mentioned the gold board. Pardon me. You've mentioned the gold board. You've mentioned forex or interventions by the Bank of
Yeah,
Ghana.
fiscal position from the fiscal policy managers, the Ministry of Finance.
Okay, so I want to ask, which of these factors has been the most decisive in this particular trend? Which factor has been the most decisive?
The factors that have been most decisive from where we sit as a Gitfik is the seemingly coordination and collaboration between the fiscal head of Ghana's economy, which is the Ministry of Finance, and then the monetary policy head of Ghana's economy, which is the central bank. There have been a very prudent and strategic collaboration that we've seen and has been seen in a very long time in Ghana's economic space, which has led to cohesion and better management of Ghana's economy. For instance, you would notice that our monetary policy per the central bank's intervention was maintained, I think, for the second time within this period. And this was strategically done to align with the fiscal results that the Ministry of Finance was implementing. And that would accumulate a number of reserves, or that will further increase Ghana's reserve. The gold board is strategically critical because we were here in this country not too long ago when we got to know per research that the amount in terms of value of Ghana's gold exports that was formal and informal, the informal revenue in terms of value exceeded the formal revenue that was coming into the country. So there was a need to sanitize the mineral space of Ghana. And hence when this government came, they strategically decided to regulate and be strong on regulation in terms of measuring exactly what goes out from our earth into the market space and matching it to exactly what we earn. And that has given us the forex, short our reserves, and that is what is growing or appreciating the Ghana Cedi. Also, the issue of acceleration on expenditure has become very critical. That the government, this new government, had decided to minimize expenditure and rake in more revenue to mitigate the shortfalls and grow the economy. So to us, it is of no surprise that even the credit rating agencies have started picking up those positive trajectory from Ghana's economy, with Moody's, revising our rating with them to CAA2, which is positive outlook, which we even anticipate that in the very coming months, we are going to be seeing Moody's review our credit rating again to BA2. Not too long ago, about last week or so, we realized that Fitch rating agency had equally also revised Ghana's rating, credit rating to B.
So
making it a stable outlook. And these are all indicators of the pragmatic and strategic economic management of this current administration.
So one question I want to ask is in relation to your neighbor. Will I say your neighbors now? Nigeria, your Anglophone counterparts in West Africa. So
Our big brothers.
okay, thank you for admitting that. So one question I
Of
want
course,
to
Nigeria
ask.
is our big brothers.
The question is around the fact that so for Nigerians have we will say we're in a region of stability with regards to our currency. When the new government stepped in your own case, the new government stepped in and the currency began to appreciate, it began to strengthen, went up from 15 cedis now to 10. That's a significant chunk of strength. In our case, our currency depreciated massively by more than 60%. It declined more than 60%. Now we're around the corridors of 1,500 to 1,550 naira to the dollar. And we'll say we've been in that region for over a year now. The government is elated that the fact that their FX reforms have come to stay and they have come to yield stability, because between 2015 to 2023, when the previous government ruled, we saw the naira go from around 190 naira to a dollar, move to around, that is in the official market, from 190 naira to 465 naira to a dollar. But in the unofficial space, we saw it move from around 200 naira to a dollar. We saw it move to 750 naira to a dollar. That was a lot of, you can imagine the amount of value that is wiped out.
Right.
But the strength of the naira is in a stable state. Official rate, black market rate, parallel market rate basically are still around the same corridors. But Nigerians have largely been excluded from international markets due to the nature of its currency. We have largely been excluded. Now, some people are still hoping that maybe the currency will grow stronger. Maybe we can see the naira go below 1,000 naira to a dollar. Based on what's going on in Ghana, what lessons do you think that the CBN can take from the Bank of Ghana?
Very well. Thank you very much. That's an elaborate question. Now, our answer is simple. There should be political will.
Okay.
Without political will, Nigeria's economic growth trajectory may be derailed. So deliberate political will, number one. Number two, there should be discipline. Discipline here means that both from the fiscal management of Nigeria's economy and the monetary management of Nigeria's economy. Number three, there should be sensitization on the dangers of speculation. In Ghana here, we notice that over 30% of the forex buildup was based or due to market speculation. And so when there is a political will, when there is discipline, it should transcend to being able to apply that discipline to weeding out the charlatans from Nigeria's money market, or in terms of Nigeria's forex market. Speculators tend to benefit from the bad or the weak trajectory of our currency. And as I said, about 30% of the build-up in Ghana we discovered was based on speculation. And so until there was that political will, number one, until we decided to go through the economic pains by restructuring our debt, until there was that discipline, both fiscal and monetary, we weren't seeing, or we were not going to see, this sharp appreciation of our currency against the dollar and other major trading currencies. So for Nigeria, we think that once you deliberate, instill discipline in your fiscal space, not necessarily going back to the Bretton Woods institution for policy
directions
and directions like what we've done, but you need to cut speculation. The speculators are benefiting. The Nigerian economy is huge. So for speculators, if we want to put value on their earnings, it's unimaginable. So be disciplined, have the political will, weed out the charlatans in the market, and build a robust buffer system. Once you do this, you would notice that your economy and all other indicators, i.e., the internal and external indicators, as a genius indicator, will all start responding positively to a trajectory. And then that may also trigger the credit ratings, who have become like the disciplinary guardians of every economy in Africa, would also start responding positively, and that would project your economy into a positive growth.
So one question I want to ask now is around how well has this strengthened CD affected inflation? We've been seeing, at least from the start of this year up till now, we've seen like a 3 to 4 percentage point decline in inflation. I think inflation is around 22% now. How well do you think that the strength of the Ghana Cedis has played? What role do you think the strength of the Ghana Cedis has played in declining inflation in Ghana?
Thank you very much again. This is a good question. Number one, what the current cedis appreciation has done to the Ghanaian economy is to cut off our debt by almost 150 million USD. Critically, because it was a cedis depreciation that also exacerbated the current or the total debt to GDP in Ghana. So with the current gains that the cedi has had, automatically our currency had appreciated, and that has reflected on the total debt to GDP.
Okay.
What this has done is that year-on-year basis, per the consumer price index, that's the CPI, our inflation is currently hovering around 18 to 20 and 22% at large. The month on month is currently less than 1%, because we are import dependent, just like many other African countries. And so we export a lot. And so the strength of the cedi has made it very interesting, aside other benefits like investor confidence, which is bringing more investment in the country over the last 6 months, as we have seen per the flows and charts. Consumers are beginning to experience easing in price of the market. And this is what has reflected deeply into an inflation rate in 2023 of over 50% to today of about 18 to 22%. And so consumers are enjoying, it is reflecting. And then we look forward, in fact, per the target, to get into a single-digit inflation, hopefully before the close of this year, 2025, or early 2026.
But now, is the Bank of Ghana's intervention strategy, is this sustainable, or will reserve depletion become a concern?
Reserve deflation will certainly be a concern on any other economy, including Ghana. Ghana is not exempted.
Yes.
But the monetary intervention by the Bank of Ghana, including tightening our policy out there and then maintaining the monetary policy rate out there, is, as I said earlier, has contributed exceedingly great to the successes we are seeing in the expansion of the Ghanaian economy. Okay. So yes, the monetary interventions are helping, and we look forward for a more robust intervention from the monetary.
So the question now is, are they sustainable? Can the Bank of Ghana keep putting in this amount of USD into the
Bank
market?
of Ghana is currently building more buffers.
Okay.
I mentioned a government policy known as a gold bond. Currently, within the space of the first quarter, since the current administration got to power, the gold bond has recorded over 1.4 billion United States dollars inflow into the Ghanaian economy, which is showing up our external reserves. And it is expected that before the close of the third quarter, the gold bond alone would rake in over 4 billion United States dollars to keep on sustaining the economic projections, positive projections that we see. And so the Bank of Ghana is able, or the central bank is able, to sustain the current policies they have put in place to grow the Ghanaian economy, minimize inflation, and keep the forest at bay for both traders and then the general public.
So one question, what's your projection for the Ghana Cedis? What's the projection for the exchange rate? to the end of the year.
Very well. Our baseline per our research that we've done, which is out there, which has been carried on by several media houses, including your distinguished media house. Our baseline expectation is 7 cedis to $1. However, on the stretch, per the close of 2025, we don't expect it to exceed 10.2, 10.5 Ghana Cedi to the dollar.
Okay. Now, finally, just one question I want to ask is about Ghana's approach to commodity exports. So, one country in West Africa that I personally, I'm not a government official, but I think we can learn a lot from, especially as Nigerians, is Ghana in their approach to commodity exports. Just the way the Ivorians also have the cocoa board, Ghana's cocoa board as well as the gold board combined together to have provided some form of liquidity and capital buffer for the Ghanaian economy, or FX reserve buffer. How do you think the Nigerians can institute this in their own space too? Because Nigeria is like the 4th largest producer of cocoa in the world, and we still have some very significant gold reserves.
Very well. I'll repeat the same recommendations I said a while ago. There should be the political will, number one. There should be discipline, number two. And then once these two things come to play, you need to deliberately structure your export commodities on the international market. You see, Nigeria, we are all practicing an open market, but Nigeria's market is extremely open. Regulations are losing in several ends. And so if you begin to have a political will to tighten your regulation and enforcing your laws and policy, you would realize that you will start seeing such positive growth.
Okay.
See, as I said, our current government has to be deliberate and so strategic to say that this is all in faith and trust in the Ghanaian economy and society. So Nigeria can follow suit, tighten your policies, tighten all the policies that are geared in managing and regulating your export into the global market. And this can only bring you, or this is what can only bring you the successes your economy need, and grow your economy to the expectation growth rate.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Selasi Koffi Akom. It's been a pleasure talking to you on BDTV this morning.
Likewise, and thank you very much for having us. Our doors are always open, and we look forward to further engagement in the near future.
Have a lovely morning.